would come out of that and give you a sense of, geolocate you in terms of how we got to this point. At the heart of the motion of no confidence being brought by the EFF's Julius Malema is that the Speaker, Togo Didiza, failed to protect, defend Parliament in the sense that when President Cyril Ramaphosa filed his interdict application in the High Court in the Western Cape, the Speaker said she will abide by whatever decision comes out, whereas the committee, the impeachment committee, opposed the President's application for an interdict. So that interdict is integral to the story that you are seeing unfolding this evening, because the sense of grievance, at least from the parties that are aligned with the EFF, and from Bulelani Phillips reporting, at least 6 parties are aligned in terms of supporting the motion that the National Assembly has lost confidence in its Speaker, and 10 are against that motion, saying that they continue, that she continues to enjoy their confidence. So having said that, then, let's take you back then to what this interdict is all about, and some of the journey that we have traversed around this Phala Phala saga, leading us to the interdict and leading us to the proceedings you are seeing today. At the heart of it all is that application in the Western Cape Division of the High Court. 2 judgments were penned, the one being the majority judgment, being the judgment of the court, because that's how these things work. Minority, always important to read for nuances and perhaps future legal points that can further be developed in argument should a matter like this come up again. But at the heart of it is President Cyril Ramaphosa being granted the interdict that he sought. The result of that is that the proceedings of the impeachment committee, especially the hearings, are halted. You've seen the impeachment committee proceeding to do some work, preliminary work, in terms of its terms of references, appointing a evidence leader and the likes, but they cannot hold hearings until the matter has been argued and ventilated in September. The minority, in their reasoning, they said they would have rejected this application for an interdict, and they made the point that they think that the grounds of review, that is the review that President Ramaphosa will be bringing in September, they find that the grounds of review that he is seeking to bring are rather weak, and therefore on that basis, they would have rejected the application for an interdict. But nevertheless, as I said, it's water under the bridge. The majority judgment is the judgment of the court. In terms of the saga itself, how it has played itself out over the last 5 years or so, thereabouts, it all starts with the theft. In fact, 6 years, the theft of about $580,000 US dollars at President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala Phala farm. That was back in February 2020. Then the former spy boss, Arthur Fraser, lays charges related to that particular theft, and it leads to all sorts of investigations, the full gambit, really, as far as investigations are concerned. And at the heart of what we're dealing with now is this particular investigation, because that investigation has to do with whether or not the threshold has been reached for the president to have to face an impeachment inquiry. And that panel, led by former Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo, finding that actually a prima facie case has been established for the president to answer as far as impeachment is concerned. Fast forward, a lot of things happen. At some point, the president was going to take that on review, but then abandoned that. The EFF then revives this particular, and the ATM, through an application that they bring. Eventually, it comes to the Constitutional Court, which rules around May this year that once the Section 89 panel has found that there's a prima facie case, it is imperative on Parliament to move to the next step, being an impeachment inquiry. And with that, off the back of that, the Parliament then establishes a 31-member committee, not panel, committee in Parliament. All the major political parties set to play a role in that particular process as it unfolds. Then you go to the next stage of the saga. Let's take you through the reasoning of the various judges. Remember what the president sought to do, what he needed to do in order to be successful. It was an interim urgent interdict. He needed to establish that he's got a prima facie right, and that there was a reasonable risk of that right being harmed should he not get the interdict that he sought. Things such as balance of convenience, granting or not granting, on which side does the balance of convenience lay. So in terms of that, the arguments about harm become central. That is he going to suffer irreparable harm, and that he would not get remedy at a later stage in the ordinary course of hearing of the matter. So the majority felt that he was able to convince them that he was going to suffer harm. In their reasoning, the majority say that they're prioritizing the pending review, the review that is going to happen in September. So that review plays itself out without this harm having materialized, which they found that it would have been irreparable harm. Once it's out, once the cat is out of the bag, or the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. That was essentially the argument. So the minority on the other side, in their arguments, they felt that it was important for them to maintain the oversight of Parliament, and just the institutional oversight of Parliament, and ensuring that Parliament has that authority to control its own procedures and how to continue with their business. The separation of powers argument they felt was quite strong, as well as the report, the Section 89 report. Remember that judgment from the Concourt, which said once it has been found that there's a prima facie case, the inquiry must move to a committee stage, and the minority was agreeing with that Parliament should not be halted in the work that they were starting to do in the impeachment committee. Then let me show you one more slide that has to do with what comes next in this whole saga. So as you'll know, as far as hearings are concerned, we are basically stuck. Nothing is moving. Well, not nothing is moving. The committee is able to do some work, as I was saying earlier on, appoint evidence leaders, work out their terms of reference, but absolutely no hearings. There's a lot of debate, by the way, about how those hearings would proceed, especially around whether or not the impeachment committee would call President Ramaphosa to testify in person, or would the president be allowed to be represented by his legal representatives. So that's where we are. That's where things are going to go. For now, that's paused. The EFF, ATM and MK party actually are not satisfied with the interdict as it stands. In fact, it's the UAT as well, if I remember correctly. I did not see the EFF being mentioned in that, but I could be mistaken. UAT is the other party that says they are not happy with the interdict and will be seeking to appeal it. They wanted to go directly to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court said, actually, if you're not happy with that interdict, go to the court that granted the interdict, being the Western Cape Division of the High Court. But all eyes are glued on this particular date in September. That's when we'll be sitting and hearing the arguments for and against that Section 89 panel report, why President Ramaphosa believes it should be set aside, reviewed and set aside, and why those who support it believe that it should stand and remain binding on Parliament and the impeachment committee for them to proceed. And once that has happened, we'll be in this terrain where we'll just be waiting to hear from the Western Cape Division of the High Court what they make of the Section 89 independent panel report. And depending on that leaning, we'll either have the hearings resuming or the report would fall apart. And if that happens, well, we essentially don't have a report to even speak of. Of course, you can imagine that whoever is not happy at the end of that process, they are more than likely going to be seeking to appeal. So we thought we'd just rewind and just geolocate you in terms of how we got to the point where we are, where Parliament, as we speak, is debating a motion of no confidence in the Speaker, Togo Didiza. You're watching The Full View. We'll be back with more for you in just a moment.